Cornell is the amazing place that it is because its people, our faculty, our students, our staff, and especially our alumni, who, wherever in the world they find themselves, are always and everywhere Cornellians. And it's terrific to see so many of you here in Bailey Hall, where I'm sure many of you have some warm memories, some not so warm memories of Monday, Wednesday, and Friday lectures bright and early at 9:05. It's been a long time since I've taught in a lecture room of this size, but if I start explaining how to manipulate the genes of mice or turn stem cells into heart cells, please just raise your hands and tell me to stop. So it's been a long time for all of you, at least 10 years since your last reunion. And for the classes of 2015 and 2020, it's your first reunion since graduation. As I think Odysseus pointed out, Ithaca isn't the easiest place to get to. But it's always worth it when you get here. So I'm especially glad to have the chance to speak with you and share some thoughts that I shared at commencement last month with to share them now with alumni and to talk directly about some of the challenges that we face in the present. These are deeply consequential times for Cornell, as they are for all of higher education. We're in a moment when the meaning and the contributions and the value of a university education are being questioned, as never before. When a university's very excellence is characterized by some as a moral failure. We're experiencing unprecedented, escalating attacks on our institutions and dangerously decreasing public support of higher education, even as our contributions to society become more critical than ever before. And we're seeing the work that we do here deeply mischaracterized and misunderstood by the media, by elected officials, by individuals unfamiliar with Cornell, and even by some of our alumni. There's a deeply distorted image out there of the Ivy League university, a caricature that's become its own dogma. It's a place where the thinking is liberal and woke, but where anti-Semitism gets a pass. A place where protests and pronouns are the priorities, where a flood of DEI and identity politics have washed away any commitment to real education, knowledge, or truth. Sometimes people ask me if this image reflects reality, if this is what we've come to here at Cornell. I usually answer by suggesting that they visit and see the reality for themselves. Cornell has been different from the beginning, as a bold experiment in a new kind of education aimed not to prepare a fortunate few for lives of privilege, but to help all citizens lead richer, healthier, more meaningful lives through advancing both traditional areas of scholarship and practical knowledge with direct impact on our society. It's a vision conceived in the waning days of the Civil War by two New York State senators, Ezra Cornell and Andrew Dixon White, who aspired to create a truly American university, unlike anything that existed at the time. A place that would give every talented young person the chance at a world-class education, regardless of who they were, where they came from, or whether they could pay. Welcoming students from every background, every religion, and every race, enrolling international students from the very first class. a community that would invite young minds to learn and explore without limits, not insulating students from difference, but instead inviting them, perhaps for the first time, to experience it. And as a university dedicated to pursuing knowledge along any path our independent faculty chose to explore, embracing fields that most people didn't think belonged in a university, we offered things like engineering and business, agriculture, and animal health. And while many institutions have emulated Cornell's model, this place remains unique. With a set of differentiators that don't exactly fit the woke university stereotype. Let me give you 6. First, we are the only Ivy Plus, or private university with a College of Agriculture and a College of Veterinary Medicine. As a private land-grant university, our Cornell Cooperative Extension field offices are in every New York county and borough. You will not find a farmer in New York State, indeed a production agriculture operation in the US or anywhere in the world that does not know the name Cornell. Second, Cornell is by far the largest of the need-blind, meet-full-need universities, graduating more low-income Pell Grant students every year than any of our peers. Third, Cornell trains more officers through our ROTC programs than any top-ranked private university. We have every service branch and have trained thousands of officers throughout our history. Fourth, for the past 2 years, we've been ranked the #1 university for veterans in the country. These are mostly kids. These are mostly kids who enlisted right out of high school without the track record or the resources for college. In the military, they gain maturity and experience. In community college, they discover their academic abilities. And then they come to Cornell, which, unlike most of our peers, welcomes transfer students from community colleges and gives military veterans the community, resources, and academic training they need to succeed. Fifth, at Cornell Tech, we have the most intensive and meaningful collaboration with an Israeli university of any university in the country. And sixth, here in Ithaca, we operate the nation's only high-intensity X-ray source within a research university, providing state-of-the-art synchrotron radiation imaging for research in physics, chemistry, biology, and environmental and material sciences, work critical to protecting our national security across land, sea, and air, in space, and in cyberspace. I could talk all day about the unique ways that Cornell contributes to our society and our world. But perhaps our greatest contribution is the modern research university itself. The Cornell model, once radical, is now the standard across all of America's major universities, progressively adopted over decades by Johns Hopkins and Stanford, MIT, our Ivy colleagues, and beyond. And when you consider all of the sources of our nation's strength, from our economic and military strength to our cultural and diplomatic influence to the global dominance of our innovation ecosystem and our ability to attract the world's brightest minds to our shores. There is no part of that strength that does not rest in part or in whole on America's research universities. And particularly on the historic and still unparalleled partnership between these institutions and our federal government. It is a partnership with its roots in the Second World War and the redeployment of America's research enterprise to advance our military, political, scientific, and economic progress in times of peace. Through decades of growth, the essential model has stayed the same. Researchers from around the country compete through an incredibly rigorous process for the opportunity to carry out research that the government chooses to fund. The federal research funding that Cornell receives is not a gift. It is a contract, strictly budgeted and audited to conduct specific research that the government wants done to benefit this country. For the last 80 years, most scientific and medical research in the United States has been carried out through this system in partnership, in a wonderful partnership between federal agencies, hospitals, and universities. It's a partnership that has drawn the best and the brightest minds from around the world to our institutions, enabling our nation to attract and retain the cream of global talent and training future generation of scientists to carry our progress forward. It has made our research universities the envy of the world, known to all as places where the best people go to do their best work. And it is a great deal for the government. Federal agencies set the priorities and award highly competitive grants to only the very best researchers. Universities build the buildings, hire the staff, recruit the faculties, recruit the most talented faculty, and we also train the graduate students who contribute to that research as part of their education. I've spent decades working on the budgets of these grants at two great universities. Believe me when I tell you that there is no slush fund for other activities in federal grants to universities. In fact, it's the opposite. Universities are contributing their own resources through our endowment, our gifts, and other funds to advance the government's research priorities. The competitiveness of federally sponsored research is such that it's become a key metric for the excellence of an institution. And Cornell is, frankly, one of the best, with over $784 million a year in government-sponsored, federal government-sponsored research in fiscal 2024. With these government contracts, our faculty, our graduate students, and staff have worked on real-time sensor data to prevent mid-air collisions of aircraft. They've explored better and more resilient materials for jet engines and airplane wings, novel propellants for the U.S. Air Force in areas vital to space exploration and national security, and they've identified critical vulnerabilities in America's semiconductor supply chain. At Weill Cornell Medicine alone, over 1,300 active NIH grants are enabling researchers to develop novel imaging methods and improve early diagnosis and treatment outcomes for neurologic conditions, to target aggressive cancers through precision medicine and new immunotherapies, to integrate artificial intelligence and data analytics to improve cardiovascular risk assessment, and to optimize pain management for critically ill children while minimizing their exposure to opioids. Cornell researchers are tracking and preventing colony bee collapse, protecting our pollinators and our food supply, and developing new climate-resilient strains of crops, along with the tools and expertise to help feed an expanding population in a warming world. They're finding better ways of building more sustainable buildings with lower carbon impact, and better ways of creating and storing renewable energy. The list goes on and on. And here's the thing. All of that research, all of that progress, all of that work that affects everyone happens because talented students had the chance to reach their potential through the life-changing opportunity of a university education. There's no science without scientists. There's no engineering without engineers. No art, literature, or humanities without societies that value them and teach them and pass them down for each new generation to learn, appreciate, and build anew. Universities are essential to our modern lives and societies and for our future. Each of you sitting here has experienced the transformative impact of a Cornell education in ways that have had profound and lasting effects on your lives. At Cornell, any student can receive a world-class education regardless of their ability to pay, and as a former scholarship kid, I am the living proof of the transformative effect that an education makes on the lives of our students. The education I received changed the entire trajectory of my life, as it did for all of you, I have no doubt, and it does for all of the students that are now at Cornell. Students like Aiden Black, a member of the class of 2025, who calls Cornell, quote, the perfect place to keep asking why over and over again. A history major on the pre-med track, Aiden became part of both the Cornell community and our local community as a member of the Varna Volunteer Fire Company. And when the governor sent the company to fight the Jennings Creek wildfire last year, Aiden, with the blessing of his professors, went too. He says, it was surreal to go from digging trenches and putting out fires on a mountaintop to reading my microbiology textbook back at base camp. But in that moment, I was proud to be representing Cornell. And Irina Danilina, a psychology major who has pursued interests in neuroscience, art, history, architecture, and religious studies through the opportunities she's found at Cornell. From an archaeological dig in Israel to an undergraduate neuroscience research assistantship in the basement of Uris Hall, Irina is part of the Harrison College Scholars Program, which she calls a small but mighty community of passionate people who love and need to learn and discover. And Diana Ayubi, who arrived in the United States 4 years ago on one of the last flights out of Kabul, part of a group of women students who fled Afghanistan together when the Taliban took control. She came to Cornell as a transfer student and flourished in a kind of academic freedom she had never known. This fall, she'll be heading to graduate school to start her PhD in clinical psychology. At Cornell, she says, I see the impossible becoming possible through hard work, passion, and purpose. Last month, we launched over 8,500 new Cornell graduates into the world with undergraduate, graduate, and professional degrees across our 17 schools and colleges. Students who will begin their careers prepared, as you have been, by their Cornell educations, with not only the knowledge, skills, and expertise they will need in their lives and in their careers, but also the values and habits of mind they will need as citizens in our democracy. And about a third of those students, like Irina from Russia and Diana from Afghanistan, are international students. Students who come to Cornell seeking academic opportunities they couldn't find at home, bringing with them the perspectives, experience, and diversity of viewpoint that make it possible to provide world-class education in a small town in central New York. Democracies aren't intended to be places where everyone is the same or where everyone always agrees. Neither are universities. But what both require to succeed is a shared understanding about how to live with difference and how to disagree, how to discuss these differences honestly and in good faith, how to listen and debate with reason, evidence, and civility. The only way to learn civil discourse is by participating in it. So at Cornell, we not only tolerate but encourage free speech with clear expectations around exercising that right with respect. Cornell is not perfect. Our universities are not perfect. But as a nation, we can no more afford to discard our flawed institutions than we can afford to discard our flawed democracy. We have work to do, and we've been doing it. We've clarified our expectations around civil discourse with a new expressive activity policy drafted by Cornell faculty, staff, and students, and led by Colleen Barry here today. The policy clearly outlines time, place, and manner restrictions for campus protests, bars unauthorized encampments, and specifies the interim emergency actions up to and including expulsion our administration will take when necessary to protect our community. You can find the full policy on our website and read it in detail, but I'll summarize it with a very familiar concept. My right to swing my fists ends where your nose begins. We've launched a task force on institutional voice to set policy for how and when the university should speak institutionally on matters of politics, current affairs, and world events. We've changed our admissions policies to comply with the 2023 Supreme Court decision, and we've strengthened enforcement of Title VI civil rights protections on campus with a reorganization of our non-discrimination, anti-harassment, and accommodations compliance services into the Office of Civil Rights, with new staff to investigate and act on incidents of anti-Semitism and other bias as we work to ensure that Cornell is a safe and welcoming place for Jewish students and all students in a time particularly of rising anti-Semitism. Here in Ithaca, it is my promise to you that Cornell will remain steadfastly committed to our core values. First, to our founding principles of integrity, openness, and opportunity, to always striving, even if imperfectly, to being an institution where any person can find instruction in any study. Second, to prizing diversity as a driver of our excellence, because a community rich in expertise and perspective, experience, and background is a more fertile environment for new ideas and new insights. And it is essential to our mission. Our commitment to attract, welcome, and support outstanding students, faculty, and staff from every background is part of our founding ethos and core values, and that commitment will never change at Cornell. Third, our commitment to excellence, to making merit-based decisions in all of our processes. And finally, to being an institution that follows the law. Not however it might be asserted, and we will stand up when we feel that our legal rights are being infringed, as we have, but the law as it has been established through our democratic systems of government. And when we believe that the law or our rights have been violated, we will assert those rights, as we have done in the lawsuits we followed, challenging cuts to agreed-upon funding through contracts with the Department of Energy, National Institute of Health, and National Science Foundation. If you keep applauding, there's not going to be time for questions. So we have at Cornell received no request that would violate our principles or that would affect our academic freedom of inquiry. But the actions that have been taken in recent weeks and months are serious. In February, we learned through tweets and leaks that the administration intended to cancel $1.1 billion in federal grants, some of them multi-year grants at Cornell. While we never received a formal notice of this intent, we immediately began experiencing stop work orders, cancellations, and delays in contractually obligated reimbursements. This multi-agency pullback has affected vital research across our Ithaca, Cornell Tech, and Weill Cornell Medicine campuses, abruptly halting government payments towards the salaries of faculty, graduate students, and staff working on government-contracted research projects. Months later, we have still not received any explanation for these actions. And we continue to try and understand how we can resolve what appears to be an arbitrary withholding of research funds. In response, we've needed to institute a hiring freeze, we're postponing investments, and we're taking a range of other measures to ensure that we can keep paying our faculty and staff. We've made the difficult decision to admit fewer graduate students in fields most engaged in government research. And we've launched research resiliency funds, which are helping us ensure continuity of our most critical research in the short term. But make no mistake, there is no way that Cornell can assume with its own resources or the generosity of our alumni the role of the federal government in funding our nation's foundational research. And there is no substitute for the ability to attract and enroll the most talented and most promising, most creative students from around the world. And to offer them, once they're here, the stability and resources to do their best work. And this is where we need your help. Advocate for Cornell and for higher education. Our new Cornell Matters campaign suggests ways, large and small, that you can help spread the word that Cornell, like all of America's great research universities, matters to all of us. Stay informed about what we do here. Know what's really happening on our campus. Bookmark our university statements webpage to make sure you have the latest on federal issues and changes affecting Cornell. Follow Cornell on social media and bookmark news.cornell.edu. And if you have any questions you can't find an answer to, get in touch through our offices of Alumni Affairs or University Relations. Share what we do here and your support for research universities here with your friends and on social media. And advocate with your government representatives. Let them know that research matters, that education matters, that America's research universities advance American progress and prosperity, and investments in research dividends pay us all. So I've talked a lot over the last half hour or so about the importance of research, of education, of the work we do and our peer institutions do that is so critical for our nation and the world. I'd like to take a moment, the last moments, by talking very specifically about Cornell. Unlike most Cornell presidents, I came into this job having already spent most of my career on this campus. I was, as Craig said, I was a faculty member, a dean, and a provost. My wife spent her career here, and we're also Cornell parents. I love this place. It's home. And to me, what is so precious and wonderful about Cornell, the thing that struck me so vividly from the first moment that I arrived on campus, and that I have cherished more deeply every year since, is the sense of shared community that we have together. A community that is truly different from any other that I have known. And what I've discovered, having seen generations of Cornell students study here and graduate and come back as alumni, is that you only really understand the strength of the bonds you've built here after you leave. When you realize that you now share with the people you've met here, and even those you didn't, a common identity, one that will stay with you and remain a part of you for the rest of your life. That they are bonds that were built despite and will endure throughout your disagreements and differences, a commitment to who we became here and who we strive to be. Any person, any study, is the ethos and the greatness of Cornell. But it is also, in deep and fundamental ways, the greatness of our nation. I'm deeply honored to lead this university and grateful beyond words to be a part of this community. Thank you so much.